everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. Welcome to JAM-A-Palooza. If you didn't think I was stressed out enough trying to build my ultimate supergroup in the collaboration episode, oh, wait till you get to the end of this one. Jim and I are going to create our dream festivals.
Once again, the subject this month was suggested by a reader, so blame them, Matt, not me. But also, thank you, Dean, for suggesting this and engaging us on the Facebook group page.
Yeah, if anyone else has any wild ideas to raise my blood pressure, hey, chime in. Let us know. Dean, this was a very good challenge for us.
Yes, it was a good challenge. And music festivals themselves, they have a rich history. So, Matt, because you've always taken the role of the historian on the show, why don't you give us a brief rundown of the history of music festivals before we really get going?
Really? I got to do that again? I didn't realize when we started I was going to be the music history teacher. Do you realize how much history there is when it comes to music festivals? I think it's your turn, Jim. You give us the timeline of music festivals from their incarnation to current day. I got time. I got beer.
All right. Sit back, lean back. If you've got a few hours, here we go. If that's the way you're going to put it, I guess I don't have a choice. Music festivals can be dated back from ancient Greece and still continue to be celebrated around the world to this day. That's it.
Exactly. I didn't think you wanted that crown. That's just too much. That's why I'm not going to try and deliver a lecture. I'm sure as we go on and we talk about specific ones, there's going to be historic notes that come out, blah, blah, blah. Here are some names of festivals people might be familiar ones. From the 60s, let's just start with Newport Folk Festival. I had no idea this thing was still going on. That's how little I pay attention to festivals in general, I guess, especially folk. But I checked out the lineup this year. It would be a tough choice to what day you're going to go to. There's Guster, Corey Wong, Dropkick Murphys, Black Puma, Sierra Farrell, who we found recently. She was really good. The Breeders. The Breeders are still making the rounds.
I guess folk music has come a long way then at the Newport Folk Festival.
Yeah, I think you're going to find that with a lot of these festivals. They definitely evolve over time. But 1965, that is a show when people lost their minds. And why? Because Bob Dylan had the unmitigated gall to go electric. They revolted big time on him.
And now folk is just basically a suggestion in the title of the festival.
Yeah.
They still have a few folk acts, so it's still it's ongoing a little. Yeah.
And in the focal point of this, and really a lot of these festivals, there's a lot of social stuff going on. There's protest, promote inclusivity, anti-war, civil rights, all those kind of movements. But keeping the name, you get the brand awareness, everything historically keeps chugging along. It's easier to keep the name alive so people know what you're talking about instead of trying to give birth to a new festival.
Yeah.
And inclusivity, that message rings a little more true when it comes from different walks of life. So it's good to not just have it come from one source. Next, we got the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Montreux, that's how you say that. When I saw it, it's one of those French words. Sorry, people.
Yeah. Montreux. I don't know how much supposed to say. But Jim, you might need to take a trip to Switzerland this year to see the Smashing Pumpkins. You could hear autumn in all its glory.
Yeah, no, I'll give that one a pass.
Come on, Billy might set up a wrestling ring for us too. But the main thing I know about Montreux is when Stevie Ray Vaughan blew everyone away. I was anticipating having to do a little bit of historical notes here and there. But one of the things that I was reading about Montreux about what made it special was how close the fans could get to the performers. I was finding pictures and I was pretty amazed at how close people were getting to bands like Led Zeppelin. I mean, that stage was 2 feet high at best.
Yeah.
And he's literally like not even 2 feet away from people. It's amazing.
Yeah, you sent me a picture of that, and it reminded me of like when we were in a band together as kids, and we get like a little riser to play up in front of people, and that was it. And imagine seeing Led Zeppelin. Imagine seeing Gonzo playing the drums, or Jimmy Page playing guitar right in front of you like that. It'd be great.
You would not need to mic up those drums.
No, you would not. They'd be loud enough. And like the Newport Folk Festival, when it comes to this Montreux Jazz Festival, I wonder really how much jazz is still played at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, though. It's the recognition of origins and progression, as you've said.
Yeah, neither of us can name more than 5 folk or jazz acts, let alone enough to fill festivals. I only mentioned the big names at Newport because name recognition, it's going to bring in the people, right? Newport has artists, same with Montreux. They fit into that mold of jazz and folk. For Newport, there's Jillian Welsh, Palmyra, Molly Tuttle, and there's plenty more in that circle, but they're usually on the smaller stages because the bigger names are going to get the people in. But there's some great songs in there. People that are going for Billy Bragg, they're going to get exposed to Aaron, Matt, and Paul of all people.
Listen to you go.
Yeah, I'm putting the historian hat back on. I
Yeah,
actually
you
did some studying this week.
are.
Oh my God. But here's the most interesting thing that I learned about Montreux.
Okay.
And I should have known this. I don't know how I never knew this, to be honest. One of the most iconic guitar riffs came out of Montreux. So there's a story. Strap in. Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention were performing at the Montreux Casino. It was one of the last shows before they closed down for the winter. A fire started. Apparently somebody threw or shot a flare gun into the ceiling, as the story goes. Fire started, burned the whole place down. No fatalities, thankfully. Parked outside was Rolling Stone's mobile studio, and they used the fire at the Montreux Casino as inspiration for Smoke on the Water.
They were sitting across a small lake or pond with that mobile studio where they were at, and they could see the place burning down on the other side. And they wrote Smoke on the Water originally as a joke. It
Mm-hmm.
was just a like a little, kind of, you're sitting around with your friends and you're playing the guitar and you're making up lyrics. And that most iconic guitar riff of all time almost came from
Yeah.
that moment at Montreux. Great moment to put on the historian hat. Thank you. I'm glad that came to the show.
And then, Jim, we had Woodstock.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we're gonna put away the rant crown for now. We're not gonna bring up the 90s versions. We're only gonna talk about the original and the only one that should exist.
Yes, thank you for that. Because the 1969 festival is the stuff of legends and a lot of male and female nudity.
Yeah.
I think if the weather had been perfect, it might not have been as revered by that generation because they survived something over that weekend with all of the rain. But during a time when many young Americans were giving up their lives for the Vietnam War, this was a place for the counterculture to congregate and create a community to survive and get through together. I've never read or seen footage of someone complaining about the trek to get into Woodstock, only about how amazing it was to be there and sitting through those heavy rains and everything they experienced it. It was shared experiences with a large group, and those kinds of things can be amazing.
Drugs help too.
They do. Good. Stay away from the brown acid. Stay away from the brown acid. Think about that. They needed a guy named Wavy Gravy to come out and tell them to stay away from the brown acid.
And that's not a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
No, not then.
And then moving on, we got the Monterey International Pop Festival, where, of course, Jimi Hendrix lights his guitar on fire.
Yeah, people connect Hendrix musically probably more to the national anthem and Woodstock. But when you think about a picture of Jimi Hendrix, the first thing that comes to mind for most people is his guitar on fire in front of him with his fingers looking like he's raising the fire up off of it. It's probably his most iconic photo.
And this is before he was Jimmy fucking Hendrix too. He is an icon now, but the experience broke out of London. And Purple Haze and Hey Joe, they may have been top 10 hits over in London, but nothing over here. And Janis Joplin and the Who also brought the fire to Monterey.
Yeah, they did. They were great.
Overall, though, Monterey kicked off the Summer of Love in 1967, only a few months after Timothy Leary spoke the words, "Turn on, tune in, and drop out" at the Human Being event in San Francisco. So much acid in the
Stay away
60s.
from the brown acid.
No more helpful words were probably ever spoken.
No.
So, Jim, I know what we already said. We're not going to go into the train wrecks of the 90s versions of Woodstock, but there was one eerily similar event in 1972, the Erie Canal Soda Pop Festival in Illinois. Soda Pop Festival. What kind of crap is that, you say? Well, people figure if you call it the Soda Pop Festival, they're not going to suspect you're going to have a bunch of drugs there. Wouldn't you want to see this lineup, Jim? And this is just a few of the bands: Black Sabbath, Allman Brothers, Cheech and Chong, Fleetwood Mac, The Doors, The Eagles. Now remember, this is 1972. They only have one album band. You're not sick of them, right? Slade, Nazareth, Rod Stewart and Faces, and plenty more. Who wouldn't want to see that lineup? Oh my God. This thing took place on Bull Island in the Wabash River. It's often called the Bull Island Music Festival. Now, with all these bands, I wasn't about to name check the whole thing. They decided an estimate of 55,000 people was adequate to plan for. Wrong. Instead, somewhere between 200 and 300,000 people showed up.
Oh, wow.
What's the main thing that usually happens at these things to make it unpleasant? That's right. Rain, and lots of it the night before. then the whole thing goes downhill. Many bands canceled. They couldn't reach the site because of all the cars parked on the highway. The rain, the flooding of getting to had to build a road to get stuff out to the island, lack of security. The crowds were much bigger, obviously, than they anticipated. So some of them wanted more money. You could probably say, well, that's just an excuse because they didn't want to deal with the coming fiasco. They saw it coming. But here's the thing, though. The original site was a place called Chandler Raceway. It was a racetrack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at Chandler Raceway, there were hundreds of outhouses being built. They had to change the location at the last minute. People wanted to sue and said, no, you can't have that in my backyard. Well, there wasn't enough time to move all those outhouses. So the reports I was reading said there was only 6 on this island. Even if they had planned for 55,000 people, that's like one shitter for over 9,000 people. Yeah. 200,000, and you're talking 33,000 per outhouse. Hence turd fields, which is probably self-explanatory. Food and water were running out, price gouging, then the looting of all the food and whatever they could get their hands on. The crowd even found and killed a cow that was on the island. They couldn't butcher it to eat it, though.
I don't know. Sounds like Lord of the Flies.
That's exactly. And a lot of the stories I read, that's what they were equating it to. Yeah. Then, of course, at the end, the obligatory burning of the stage and everything else that wasn't nailed down. They should have just threw the cow on the fire.
I love how we react when we're unhappy in large crowds. Just burn it all down.
Yeah, I don't have toilet paper. Somebody's fucking dying.
I've been holding this shit in for 3 days. I'm burning something. Wow, that's nuts. That's crazy. All right, Matt, move us on.
Okay, well, let's go to the 80s. And the festival that I really wanted to see growing up was the US Festival.
That's not the US Festival. It's the US Festival.
That's right. It's the US.
Yes.
Festival.
The brainchild of Steve Wozniak from Apple Computers, Apple fame.
And it's a good thing it had deep pockets too, because they lost $12 million each year. He wanted the 80s to be more of a community centric because he thought the 70s were the me generation. He got that twisted. I thought it was the 80s that was the me generation. Actually, I think just about every generation turns into the me generation after a while. Depends on how old that generation gets.
Yeah.
But they had 2 festivals, and they were 8 months apart, September of 1982 and May 1983, and was spared no expense. The US Festival was the first to use a satellite link between the US and the USSR called the US-Soviet Space Bridge, so the festival could be seen in the Soviet Union.
So why was this something that you wanted to go to? Why is this your festival of choice if you could pick one?
I'd have to go to both.
Both days or both festivals?
Both festivals. But day one in 82, that would have been the heaven because the Ramones, they played to their biggest crowd ever. Talking Heads, B-52s, and the Police headlining.
Wow.
Even if I had to put up with Oingo Boingo.
That's when you go have lunch or take a piss.
Yeah, exactly. They were just never my thing. But for 1983, it was expanded to 4 days, and each day focused on a genre. So if you didn't want to go to a genre, hey, screw it, skip it. So the genres were new wave, rock, heavy metal, and oddly country, which was the one that was going to close out the long weekend.
Wow.
But it's the 80s. You had Willie Nelson. He was pretty hot in 83 coming off, always on my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heavy metal, but day back in 1983, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, Ozzy, Judas Priest, Triumph, the Scorpions, Van Halen.
That's hair metal Matt's dream right
Oh
there.
my God. Yeah. And this is before the album 1984 came out, right? Van
Mhm.
Halen, they're cruising on Diver Down.
Which is not the best album to cruise on.
No, the Scorpions is right. It's before Love at First Sting. They're cruising
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Blackout, which well, they're not cruising. Blackout's a great damn album. Triumph, this is before Thunder 7. It's all right before that 84 would hit with hair metal.
So would you say that Wozniak was pretty good at choosing who was going to hit next then? At least
Um,
in that category with who he brought in?
I don't know what hand he had in the planning of the festival other than footing the bill. I'm sure he was pretty high level. I'm sure he had, maybe Willie Nelson was what he wanted. I don't know.
Well, whoever worked for him did their job.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that was an awesome one. So there've always been a lot of music festivals. We just don't hear of them, or we're kind of deaf to them because we hear about them all the time. There were a lot of born out in the 90s and 2000s. And say what you will about those later Woodstocks, but they made promoters realize people were into the idea of music festivals. The Warp Tour, early on in their run, they did a great job of filling their lineup with great obscure punk and alt bands, grabbing some right before they would hit big too. And L7 may have been one of the most recognizable bands after gaining attention from their 1992 hit, Pretend We're Dead. And I think the only reason I knew that song was because of Beavis and Butthead. But that same tour had Sublime almost a full year ahead of what I got. And no doubt a few months before Tragic Kingdom. They repeated that feat frequently in the early years and even helped break bands like Incubus, Blink 182, Dropkick Murphys after releasing their debut. I mean, boom, right on the festival. It's pretty impressive when you take into account all the planning and organization that goes into a 3-month multi-band, multi-city tour. You don't just whip that out overnight. There's a lot of thought that goes in here.
Ah, that's big. So other festivals that were happening in the 90s, the touring festival really kind of became a big thing. We had Lollapalooza, which was the original one, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And then after that, Lilith Fair was another huge tour that featured primarily female artists. It was really empowered by women. It was, I think it was created by Sarah McLachlan. And I'll get a little more into that when we get to the end of the show because I've got a point to talk about with Lilith Fair. However, Lollapalooza, this was the start of the touring festival in the 90s. Perry Farrell created it as a goodbye tour for Jane's Addiction, but it became really big. Originally, it was kind of small alternative bands up and coming, and they were touring around to places where people in the countryside could come and see them. It wasn't just all city based. As it grew bigger and bigger, and alternative music grew bigger and bigger, suddenly it started filling up with kind of like the average Joe person. And so
Mm.
by the time it got to 1994, they asked Nirvana to come, and they were in serious contract talks with Nirvana to headline Lollapalooza that year. And when Kurt Cobain decided he couldn't do it, it came down to the fact that he couldn't go and play every single day to a crowd of bros that were the same people who used to beat him up in high school. And
Oh yeah, I can see
and
that.
that's kind of what happened. So I will kind of counteract that with I did go to Lollapalooza in 1994, and this was after Kurt Cobain had killed himself. It was a very somber kind of moment that happened in music history for you and I in our life at that time. But just an example of the bands that I saw in that single day. I saw The Verve, The Flaming Lips, Luscious Jackson, The Breeders, A Tribe Called Quest, George Clinton, the P-Funk All-Stars, Nick Cave, the Beastie Boys, and the Smashing Pumpkins were headlining. Billy Corgan, he still had hair at the time. I crowd surfed the only time in my life. You talked about L7. I crowd surfed during L7. I got actually taken over the gate. I got taken all the way to the front,
Oh,
it was such a great ride, up in the air, fist pumping, everybody, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then when I got put over the gate and I got around the backside, I thought I can never do that again. That was the best thing. Like that, you do something once, you had the
yep.
experience you needed to have, and it was fun. I had no problem with it. I wasn't afraid of it, but
Yeah.
you kind of want that to be the only time when it's that cool.
No helter skelter moment, huh?
No
Didn't want to
helter
go
skelter
for
moment. No, 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 no. I actually got pulled over the gate later in the night because during the Smashing Pumpkins, I probably made my way up to about the fourth row. They opened with Soma, which is a slow song,
Yeah.
off Simon Stream. It was absolutely amazing, but the crowd just was so crushing and pushing forward. It probably wasn't, but me being the kind of guy who would feel that way anyway, because I don't really like crowds that much.
Yep.
I just kind of made my way to getting pulled over. I got pulled over once. I knew it would happen again. And I
Yep.
got pulled over again and ran around to the back and met up with my
Yep.
friends.
And it's not always about the pressure. It's about the feeling that there becomes a time in a crowd like that where you are not in control of where you're going. And that
No,
can be
you're not.
uncomfortable. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
What about Coachella?
Oh, you mean what I like to call the Instagram celebrity selfie convention?
Yeah. So I Googled what's wrong with Coachella, and my favorite nickname was the Influencer Olympics.
Yes. Yeah.
What I read and watched, it fed right into my natural skepticism. It's the poster child for everything that will make me rant spiral. I think it's starting to show signs of cracking because of that. People are starting to push back. Tickets a few years ago would sell in hours. In 2015, it only took 40 minutes to sell out. This year, a week after, you could still get some tickets. There's some general admission, but you could still get some. And Billboard reported the ticket sales were down 14 to 17%. It's still highly attended, but the cheapest tickets, they're $500. And then all the BS fees, getting to
Wow.
California, hotel, transportation, if you don't shell out for more for a camping spot. And then there's silly things like, I don't know, I want to eat. Plus waiting in line. Somebody chronicled their time at Coachella. They had to wait in line over 2 hours to take a shower.
That's nuts.
It is started in 1999 to be the anti 90s Woodstock. And I understand that festivals, like anything, they're going to change over time and they should reflect what the current generation may want to see. But it definitely sounds like, and I shouldn't just pick on Coachella because I think this probably happens to all festivals. Along the way, as they mature, they lose their way. It started with the $50 a day for a ticket. Got to see Rage Against the Machine, Beck, Ben Harper, Moby, Jurassic 5. 25 years later, you got Ice Spice, Lana Del Rey, Doja Cat. No offense if that's your thing, uh, but it's grown up into like a superficial stage. Grumpy old man time, because that's how pop music has largely evolved.
I think that the biggest problem with a festival like Coachella, and I've seen it happen more often over here, is that they're trying to appeal to too many people at the same time. They're trying to grab
Yeah.
too many different audiences. And those are all a lot of really great artists that I would want to go and see, but I would probably want to see them more individually. We were talking about this outside the show. How many of these bands would we go see in a club and go enjoy
Yeah.
them in an intimate setting, but
Hmm.
not really want to pay? And then also with the cost of living crisis that's gone on, it maybe it's not the same in the US as it is for us over here in the
Oh, yeah, it's
UK,
bad.
but I think it's been the same inflation across the board. I think people are choosing to go to either a show of somebody they really enjoy and like, or a singular festival that's going to be more theme focused on what they're going to enjoy. And yeah, we're always going to see famous people put up their selfies. Well, maybe not always, but as long as Coachella can afford to keep going. But $500 a ticket, man, that's
Yeah.
nuts.
And there is still an element of bands you don't know at even festivals like Coachella. And $500, say you even spent $1,000 going, right? You're like, God damn, there's like 50 bands. That's wow, you're getting a lot for your money. No, you're not, because you're overloading. It's just largesse,
Yeah.
right?
Remember going to regular concerts and just getting to discover an opening band instead
Yeah,
of,
I loved that.
uh-huh.
Yeah, and maybe I'm romanticizing it, but it just feels like these festivals, especially something like Coachella, where you're giving an abuser permission.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and g- going to a small club is like therapy, you know,
Yep.
where you can immerse yourself in this one band that you really like instead of flitting from this stage, that stage. Oh, let's go over here, let's go over there. It's very much the way shit is now, where you know you listen to all your music on a streaming service and you're just gonna skip, 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 skip. You don't really immerse yourself into one experience. Yep.
Right, get us off Coachella.
Yeah, let's go to one that I'm kind of conflicted on all of these, but especially Bonnaroo. Now that I know it's an hour outside of Nashville, Tennessee, I want to go because Nashville is a blast. But like all these festivals, people are hating on them because they've changed. They're all about the money. Of course they are. If they don't make money, they ain't going to keep going. And there's always going to be blowback when it feels like it's not being hidden, when it's just so blatant in your face. But a couple new finds we've had are performing this year, Medium Build and the Beaches.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll be honest though, and you've kind of hit on it too. It's just the size of these festivals. It's intimidating. 30-ish bands in a day. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. You know me, I'd want to check out every band I've never heard of before, and that's most of them. I doubt there's a band in here that nobody's ever heard of, but to me, you know, I probably know 5% of these bands, but I judge it on those big names that I'm like, ugh, and I kind of pinch my nose at because I'm the guy that picks the wrong lane at the grocery store. I'm the guy that picks the wrong lane on the highway. Yeah, you know, the one I check out, it's not going to be any good. And I keep going from stage to stage until I finally gave up and fucking, I'm just getting high or something.
I agree with you about the crowds. And even though I've been to a couple of festivals, crowds are never a great experience for me. I do think, fortunately, once the music starts, I can put that out of my head as long as I have a few inches of safe space around me, which is why that didn't work for me at Lollapalooza. I had to get out of there.
Yeah, yeah. I do enjoy bands in a more intimate setting. The biggest problem I have with crowds, and this is just me being a pessimist, I know I'm going to see shitty behavior, and that drives me crazy. But you can see shitty behavior in any setting. So maybe you just see less of it.
I think the festival that you and I would really enjoy going to together would be South by Southwest.
Hmm.
First, I'm sure there are a lot of people around, but the venues are smaller because it's not stages. It's not a festival in a field somewhere. It's
Spread out
different
over a
events.
city.
Yeah, it's all over a city. And we love finding the little known acts who are going to go there for their big break. I even know a couple of the Scottish bands here who've gone over there and they were really excited to play it.
Yeah, 2008 Indie Matt wanted to make a pilgrimage to Austin for this one. Oh my God. Fleet Foxes, Black Keys, back, you know, before they really exploded. Black Mountain, AA Bondi, and they even had REM for you, Jim.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2008, they even added comedy. So, and a lot of these festivals do this. It's an arts and music festival, right? So that everybody, you know, all the shops and everything can partake in what's going on and bringing and what has brought people to the city.
So a couple of things before we get to the point of the entire show. What about metal festivals?
Oh, these are daunting because I know even less of the bands at some of these new ones. I mean,
Yeah, I don't really
Wacken, Open
know.
Air,
Yeah.
Download, Hellfest. There's some really good documentaries, especially on Wacken, which actually it's a pretty good selling point because I watch it. I'm like, dang, I want to go there. This seems like a lot of fun.
But what about the Monsters of Rock? That seems like
That
that's
was
your
the
thing.
one because back in the back, you know, we're talking about the US Festival, you know, 1988 was the first time, I think it's the only time Monsters of Rock came to the States at LA Coliseum. Again, some bands that I would have gone nuts for. Kingdom Come, Dokken, Metallica, Scorpions, Van Halen, and well, Van Hagar at, you know, at 1988. I'm pretty sure that's Van Hagar at that point.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. And Rock in Rio is that's a different animal because it started in Rio de Janeiro, but it's kind of gone to Portugal and Spain, and it's kind of traveled between cities. But man, Rock in Rio, I mean, you're gonna see Iron Maiden. You could have seen Queen, but then so I got this one pulled up right in front of me, 1985, Rock in Rio. I'm halfway through the set. You had the B-52s, then you went to the Go-Go's, and then from the Go-Go's you went to Queen.
Wow.
I mean, that would be awesome. And then earlier in years, you got Iron Maiden, Whitesnake. It is more of uh, it's not necessarily metal. Oh my God, 1991. I have to say this 1991, Rock in Rio 2, 1991. Debbie Gibson.
Is that kind of like Metallica showing up at Lollapalooza?
I don't know. I'm looking at this and I'm very confused because because I also see New Kids on the Block in Run
Wow.
DMC.
I guess we put Rock and Rio in the wrong parts in the notes.
Or maybe we should have studied this more. Oh, but Prince and Carlos
Yeah.
Santana would be a nice double duo there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me just get to the British festivals. Now, I'll run a couple of those by everybody because if you're from the UK, you're definitely going to know Glastonbury. Brought that up already. You have Leeds and Reading. You have Creamfields, which is a massive DJ techno kind of festival. And then you have Scotland's own Tea in the Park. And this eventually became Transmit. I went to the first Transmit in Glasgow. I went to see Radiohead. I'm not a big fan of them, or at least enough of a fan to go and see them on their own. But the festival gave me a chance to check out a lot of other bands. And to be fair, Radiohead were good. They were great. I struggle with Radiohead to listen to, but I really enjoyed them live. With Transmit, I think what they did was very wise. Tea in the Park used to be a camp out sleepover place. Now it is a festival right in the city center of Glasgow in the biggest park over 3 days, and everybody just comes and goes. And I think that's kind of a good way to do it because you can book a hotel room, you can take a shower, you don't have to worry about where you're gonna piss or shit, or waiting for any of that. And people can show up at 1 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, depending upon who they want to see play on that day. And also, you can get day tickets to go when it's in the middle of a city like that. And I
Oh,
think that works
nice.
really well. Yeah.
Yes.
But okay, Matt, that's probably enough of the history. We've talked a lot about these festivals. Like you said, we could probably do one per show. I think maybe you'd have to attend it to
And we
really.
can't even hit on all of them.
No, it'd be impossible. But we had a challenge put in front of us, and our friend Dean asked us if we could put together our own dream festival. So straight away, I can see the beads of sweat running down Matt's forehead, everybody. And
Yeah.
I'm sure this has not been an easy task for either of us.
Not at all. When I first opened our notes and I saw all the festivals you listed, I immediately thought, how are we going to pull this off? I've never been to any of these, so I don't have any personal experiences to pull from. And I didn't want to just be the grumpy old guys. Ah, they all suck because blah, blah, money and bullshit and blah, blah, blah.
Everything's gone commercial.
Well, you've seen the lineups at just one of these festivals, and we mentioned over a dozen. I almost reached out with a bargain to split this up, cover them as they happen. But again, sometimes these subject shows are a little tricky. And this was the trickiest one so far, but it was a good challenge. It really was. Both Jim and I, we're going to create 3 stages. We are limiting ourselves. We're not, this isn't going to be overly huge. We each have our own choices, style of festival we want to have, whatever. The only real parameters we put in place are that each stage will have 8 bands, and the artists we're choosing had to originate in our lifetime. Otherwise, we'd probably both be picking Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Who, Hendrix, and so on. That's too easy. That's not to say neither of us picked big acts because we did. Otherwise, I'd be here all day explaining every obscure act I chose and why no one is at my festival.
Matt's gonna make you sit down and listen here.
And I ain't got that much time left anyway.
So we're gonna go stage by stage then.
Yeah, let's do a stage by stage.
All right. So do you want me to go first?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I've given this a lot of thought, and since this is a fantasy exercise, I'm going to stretch some of the reality a bit, and I'm going to have a genre stage with 8 bands, 8 different genres. They had to have started after the 2000 stage, so from the year 2000 onward. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, this is where I'm going to bend space and time. I'm going to have a peak stage, and this will be 8 different bands or artists sharing the stage at the peak of their performing careers. So straight away, I'll start out with the genre stage. And I'm going to probably start with who is going to be the elder statesman of country music, and that's Randy Travis. Randy Travis is going to come out, sing some country songs at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's a good way to start.
It's nice and easy.
Yeah, nice and easy. And then I'm going to go with Jungle. They are going to represent the R&B and funk genre. They've kind of come along in the past, 10, 15 years. But if you've listened to our previous episodes, Matt and I have talked about them. Really cool band. Watch them on YouTube. There has to be 20 people on stage. It's like modern day P-Funk. Then Steven Sanchez. What a great modern artist. Lounge, big band music. And then after that, I'm going to pick Heart for classic rock. Heart is one of the greatest classic rock bands out of the 70s, and they're still touring and playing today. But I'm also kind of choosing them because they do the greatest cover of Stairway to Heaven you're ever going to hear. It's so good that when Led Zeppelin received the Kennedy Arts Center Award for Achievement in Performance or something like that, Heart were part of that presentation, and they played Stairway to Heaven as the finale of it and got a standing ovation from the members of Led Zeppelin. Tears coming out of Robert Plant's eyes watching it. It's great. Rap, hip hop, I'm going to take Jurassic 5 to my stage. I think they just really
I
kind
like
of,
that.
yeah, they just kind of really belong there. Keep in mind, one of the things I didn't say at the start was that all of these artists on my list are still around. So this can all still happen. Next, I have jam band, kind of, Ween, maybe. I kind of put Ween in a jam band category. I know they're kind of experimental album wise, but
There you go, experimental.
when you go see them play, they're more of a jam band on stage. And jam bands cover Ween. So that's why I kind of put it in that category. After that, I'm going to go to electronica. Your second to last band on the evening is going to be Daft Punk. Good times. Good
Okay.
times. And then at the end of the night, Britpop, I am going to reunite Oasis. And there are probably people out there going, what? There are a lot of British people out there listening to this going, yeah, that's amazing. And probably
Yeah.
some of my American friends listening to this going, fuck you, Jim. I hate Oasis. But I do think that the point of me bringing them to this point of the show is you have anticipation of bands reuniting and putting
Oh
on
yeah.
a great, massive headline show. And so for my genre stage, it's Britpop and it's going to be Oasis. Sorry, anybody who hates Oasis. I don't hate them enough to not want them in this position.
They'd be a big draw. And I like having the different genres because it keeps it fresh throughout the night.
Every time the stage changes, something different's going to happen.
Yep. I like that.
All right. What is your first?
All right. I'm going to start off my little slice of experimental hell. Like yourself, this went through so many different incarnations. For my opening stage, I went with a couple different genres. I went with punk and ska.
Nice.
Why? Good. Because energy. I just want to have fun. I want an element of fun. So I'm going to start out with Bad Manners. I mean, I don't care what time this festival kicks off, but Buster Blood Vessel comes out and he is going to get the party started. It's going to be going in the right direction. And then English Beat or The Beat, where whatever side of the Atlantic Ocean you're on is going to come out.
Yep.
Right now, here's where I start intermingling a little bit. I'm going to prevent people from going to the bathroom because the Jam is going to come out after the English Beat. All right. And they have a song called Town Called Malice. And that rhythm is so much Lust for Life that Iggy Pop's going to come out next. So nobody's
Nice.
going to want to miss Iggy Pop. Right.
Nope.
And then after Iggy Pop, you might think, wow, you're putting Iggy Pop there. He's kind of a headliner. Yeah, I understand. But the songs just were a little too much for me. I couldn't resist that. And then we're going to keep the punk energy going. Iggy Pop, yeah, he's punk, but he's got a lot of different things going on in his music catalog. Somewhere along the line before Iggy Pop ends, a bagpipe's going to come out and we're going to kick into the Dropkick Murphys.
Nice.
And then another band that people might think, oh, yeah, punk, yeah, Matt's going to have the Ramones headlining. No, I'm not, but they are going to be playing next after the Dropkick Murphys. And a lot of this is because I'm kind of trying to build from band to band, and at least with this one. The Ramones are going to finish their set with Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? And they're going to get help from the next band, Madness, because Madness is going to come out and provide the horns that are on the album versions on
Nice.
those song on that album,
Nice.
right? And then the Madness, they're gonna come out and people are gonna go, holy shit, these guys are still doing it. They're still awesome. I'm gonna have a heart attack because I'm having so much fun right now because the Clash are gonna end it out. People are gonna have their minds blown
Yeah.
because Joe Strummer is alive and the Clash rock.
And Matt's dream. So this is not reality.
Yeah.
This is not going to
No.
happen. That's fine. It's happening today, here and now,
It's
folks.
happening today. Yep.
Yes. That's
All right.
that's a great lineup. I may have thrown 311 in there myself, but I don't know how much they're really
I
punk or ska or
Yeah, I thought
yeah.
about that, but and I did kind of think of it as going, Jim, I'm the one putting 311 in just to kind of dig you a little bit, gaslight you a little
Well,
bit.
I remember seeing your notes on this at the beginning, and I don't think Madness was in there. So I'm really happy to see Madness brought
Yeah,
into this.
this started to lean really heavily punk, and I thought about going all punk, and I'm like, no, I want some
Yeah.
ska and
Madness,
two-tone in there because of those two genres, if you get the right bands, they really connect well.
yeah, well, you've got the English beat, you've got Bad Manners, and now you've got Madness. And that is where it all comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. All right. So earlier, I talked about Lilith Fair, and I kind of created my own Lilith Fair underneath my category of it has to come after the year 2000. So no band could have started out, released a major label song before the year 2000. And as I started putting this list together, I realized I had more women that I'd enjoyed listening to. Thought about it and I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to create my own modern Lilith Fair, which is a bunch of really amazing women artists out there, just absolutely killing it. So, without further ado, here we go, because I know you will not disagree with me. Maybe you'll question one or two things, but Biba Doobie, come on. I have gone on about Biba Doobie a lot. Anybody who has seen Biba Doobie open for Taylor Swift in the States knows she just had an album produced by Rick Rubin. Great opener. It's kind of that laid back, kind of chill afternoon vibe going on.
Yep. But enough name recognition that people aren't going to want to miss the start.
No, they're going to come for the beginning of it.
Yep.
And then somebody who's going to come out and just like hit you with a left hook is Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers.
Yeah.
Great band of women who really, I would say, encapsulate that 90s grunge sound almost better than any band that I've heard in the past, 5 to 10 years as the resurgence is going on. After that, somebody who's kind of strange for me to choose. I sent you the video the other night. Sigrid.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Sigrid because I really feel she's authentic. Sigrid is Norwegian. I was watching BBC one afternoon during Glastonbury, and they were doing different performances. And I was just letting the television run, and Sigrid came on. And I initially thought that I was going to probably switch the channel, turn it off, not be interested in it. And she is one of these people that when she comes out on stage, she wins you over. She comes out, it's almost like she's self aware that she's not selling you weirdness like Lady Gaga. She's not selling you sex like Nicki Minaj. She's just going to come out and be herself. I might not own any of her albums or, really dig into her too deeply, but I always go watch her play live because I feel like if I'm going to choose people to be at this Lilith Fair festival, it's okay if you're pop as long as you're authentic. And I liked that about her.
Yep. And I like what you did here too, because it's kind of like what I've talked about with album sequencing. Your first two got to come out and just grab your attention. And then the third one, you kind of want to hold back a little bit and
Yeah.
slow it down and just be a little more laid back. So yeah, no, I like what you did there.
And after that, I have Wolf Alice. I saw Wolf Alice open for the Foo Fighters back in 2018. And it was one of those head turning moments, like standing in this massive stadium with 90,000 people, and there's a band playing on stage, and it's still daylight out. But at the same time, I was like, wait, who's this? And that's Wolf Alice. The Last Man on Earth, Smile, great songs off their last album. After that, Matt, I'm going to bring the beaches because we love the beaches.
We
And
do.
yeah, we love the beaches. Great, great find by you. So happy that you brought this band to my attention through this show. They're good. And beyond that, now the show is going to get phenomenal. And I don't know if this is out of order or not, 100%, because all three of these bands are just amazing to see live. Florence and the Machine is who I'm going to bring on next. Florence and the Machine fronted Glastonbury when Dave Grohl broke his leg and the Foo Fighters were meant to do that as headliners. They absolutely captivated the UK. Florence is one of the greatest front persons of any band I've ever seen. She's barefoot on stage in a white flowing dress, running back and forth, reaching out to people. Absolutely incredible. Last year, I went to see Paramore. So Paramore's next. I love Haley Williams, Paramore's songs, how they've progressed musically, album by album, they've changed. I think Paramore deserves to be the headliner, and Taylor Swift should open for them. But that's another story.
Bold statement, Cotton.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm sticking to that. And then finally, my 2000s Lilith Fair is going to be ruled by Pink, because I don't really think there's a greater woman performer in the past, to 2024, 24 years that has stood out the way that she has. I went and saw a Pink show. Maybe it was, it's 2019, somewhere in there. And she flew all over the stadium like Garth Brooks or Bon Jovi did back in the day. And that whole jumpsuit thing.
Mm-hmm.
She does a whole Cirque du Soleil thing while she's performing on stage. Pink went and taught herself how to sing upside down so she could do that and hit the notes.
That is so damn impressive.
Yeah, it is. It is. I have to admit, Pink is probably one of the top 5 concerts I've ever been to in my life. And the band that she plays with, I think I said this in a previous episode, but it's the same band that's been backing her up for 20 years. So
Oh, cool.
she's not running out there backed by a bunch of people from the studio. She's running out there with the same group of musicians who know how to play with her and what she's doing. And yeah, so there you go. I've got a Lilith Fair.
I like that, especially when she has the Beaches and Teen Jesus come out and play with her. I think that'd be awesome.
I think she should. Now that's great.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Those last 3 acts, it's like, dang, Pink is the logical headliner just because of that stylish show that she puts on.
Yeah.
It's an event kind of show.
Yep. Yep.
But dang, those last 3, I mean, the women that are fronting those, it's like, holy shit, that's amazing. Well, we had the very same exact idea because I made my own Lilith Fair as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to start mine out with First Aid Kit. We get a little bit of
Oh,
pop
wow.
country
Yeah.
flair.
Yeah. Good call.
Nice, easy start to the day.
They would have fit in my post 2000s range. Good stuff.
Yep, they would. And then a newer band, Last Dinner Party. I don't know if people in the UK are tired of them,
Yeah.
but
No. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not as huge over here, but they're really good. I like what they're doing. And we're sharing a band here, The Beaches,
Nice.
because
Good.
we found them and we loved them so much. And then I'm going to follow up,
Blame Brett.
blame Brett. Hey, you're
Blame
having
Brett.
a shower beer right there. I see. Well, you're not in the shower. He's not in the shower, folks. I take those words back.
Yeah. He said, I see.
Yeah.
I am not recording this episode from the shower, people.
No, he's not. That's bacon frying in the background. It's not water falling. All right, and then I'm going to bring in a legacy act. We're going to bring the Pretenders on stage.
Nice.
Love Chrissy Hine, and we got to get the Pretenders. Then more legacy acts. And here's where I bend time a little bit because I am bringing back peak Pretenders here. And also next, I'm bringing back peak Blondie as
Nice.
well. Love
Nice.
them. And again, peak Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Actually, Joan Jett can play whatever the hell she wants. She's going to play from the Runaways on, whatever the hell she wants to do, she can do. And then a reunion for the ages, the Go-Go's, because they're awesome.
That's great.
And then here's one that may not fit in, and it's not completely women. A lot of these aren't. The Black Hearts are guys. Blondie, she's got guys. Pretenders, there's guys. But we're going to wind this up with a big old pop fest, and ABBA is going to come out and rule the world again.
I think that'd be a great party because the Go-Go's are the band you'd be drinking with. And
Yeah.
then once you're lit, ABBA comes out and you're the dancing queen. It
Yep.
doesn't
And
matter
you
who
can
you
just
are.
let loose because you're fucked
Yeah.
up.
But I had Joan Jett on one of
Oh,
my lists originally, actually, my next list. So it's really cool that you brought her along.
okay.
My next and final list of uh, bands that I'm going to bring to a festival. These are bands at their peak. So these are bands that I chose by year, and this is really where we're going to like flex space and time because I want you to think about each band from this era coming along and playing. And so I originally had Joan Jett from maybe 1984, 1985 on
Oh,
this
yeah.
playlist, but then unfortunately she didn't make the cut. So here we are. And at their peak, I am going to start the day off with 1986 Huey Lewis and the News.
Oh,
They are going to come out and warm the stage up and get everything going for everybody. After that, I am going to bring the band from 1988, the Bangles. So they've had their massive 80s hits. They are at the peak of everything they're doing at the time. Also, at the peak of everything they were doing because they didn't do anything afterwards, I'm going to bring the Police from 1985.
oof. This thing is
Yeah,
fire already.
this is. And then I kind of have a wild card in there. I was thinking about bands that have come along in the past, 10, 15, 20 years who really can ignite a stage and do something completely different than everything else that's in this. And I'm going to bring Muse from 2008.
That is a wild card. But 2008, people weren't sick of Muse.
Then I'm going to go back again to 1988 and I'm going to pick U2 because I think 1988 U2 was probably, even if you don't like U2, a lot of people can kind of agree that what happened before Actung Baby was actually okay. They didn't
Yeah.
mind it. It was after that that they really got annoyed by them. You brought them up earlier. You're right. Yeah, I like REM. I picked REM 1992 because I want to have all of those hits up until that point from, really kind of 1983, 84 until 1992. You're going to have a great set of REM music.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. And then Talking Heads, because, we've talked about them already, but I'm going to bring the Talking Heads to the show. 1981 is their kind of peak year for me. This might actually be pre burning down the house, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to get the CBGB's Talking Heads before True Stories when they're still kind of in their stop making sense stage because I
Mm-hmm.
think that's when they were at their prime. And then the show's going to finish with probably a band that was opening for everybody else during this time. But it's going to be Pearl Jam, 1991.
Oof.
They're out touring 10. Yeah. I mean, Eddie Vedder is swinging from the rafters of any building. He's swinging from the
High
lighting of any
energy.
any stage. He is going to climb the amplifiers, the sound systems. He's going to stage dive and put on the greatest show you've ever seen. And that band just, was relentless. They never stopped performing while they were on stage. So Yeah,
Wow. That
that
stage is
is
brought to you by adult diapers. So my third stage is just it's my energy stage. I think they've all been energy stage, but these are just some really cool bands that have high energy. I'm going to start with Pottery, that Welcome to Bobby's Motel album we found a little ago. I get my little see. I thought about Talking Heads, but I'm like, ah, they don't really fit here. But I kind of get that sound from them a little bit. And then High Fade, it's just kick-ass goddamn band.
yay,
Yeah,
Scottish. Yeah.
yeah, they need more attention because they are awesome. And then a band that I thought when we were talking about High Fade a little while ago, their High Fade's energy reminds me of the energy that White Denim used to have when they were just starting out. I'm not saying White Denim slacked off. They haven't. They still kick ass and rock, but I think those two bands would, especially back to back, be really cool. So White Denim, we're going to keep it in Texas and we're going to bring Spoon out. Rich catalog to pull from. I'm not really keeping any of these bands to any specific time frame except for the headliner. We'll get to that when we get there. So Spoon, Kings of Leon, they kind of came to me out of the blue. It's not really a band that I dig on anymore, but I think they kind of fit the sound and the vibe of what I was building here.
All right. Yeah, I got that.
And then I guess you could still call them a newer band, even they've got a ton of music out there. Cage the Elephant, because I really, really love this band has really grown on me. I love what they do. And then from there, Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. They're
Nice.
going to keep this party going.
Yeah.
Again, adult diapers. You're not going to be able to leave. And then we're going to finish it off here. A little time building because I am bringing back somebody that has passed on. We're bringing back Gord Downey because the Tragically Hip are going to headline this stage and they are going to rock everybody's world.
Yeah. That is a great headliner to that stage. It's a great lead up. You know, Pottery, kind of abstract, great rock music, High Fade, White Denim, kind of fitting in that groove. Spoon's kind of a different lean in amongst all that.
Yes, this is where I satisfied some of my obscurity a little bit, especially with the pottery. And
But I also think that Spoon, fidelity wise in their recording is a little bit off from everybody else, and that's
yeah, a little
fine.
bit.
Yeah, Kings of Leon, yeah, man, it's like all of it. So, and even Nathaniel Ratcliffe and the Night Sweats, they've got stuff that just has come out, and it's pretty good.
Yeah,
So, yeah, just keeping stuff really modern, and then Tragically Hip is one of those kind of like dream.
dream
Yeah,
bands.
yeah, yeah. So Dean probably knows maybe two of these bands that we talked about. Hey guys, I'd really like to know what kind of, festival set list you're gonna put together.
Oh, Dean, we should have
Okay,
had Dean
Dean.
on and he could have given us his festival. That would have been fun too.
Oh, I like that idea. And you know what? Let's try to call Dean on to a future show because I think he might be up for it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Any chance to talk to people. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, we will do that.
All right, I think we've talked on enough about festivals. This is a good way to end it. We've each built up a dream festival, three stages, 24 bands total. So Jim, why don't you tell everybody where we're going next? I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is because this is what we do. We are going to wrap up the month of May. And we're going to have to let everybody know, are we headed into summer with those summer jams or are we going to summer with a summer slump? I think Matt's already making a face.
Oh
He's
yeah. Nobody can see my face because hey,
yeah,
this is kind of radio.
it is. But I think Matt's feeling like there's a slump going on, but I think there's enough music that we might be able to pull out of May that we're gonna.
There will be. It's just that you know, there's been a lot of sourness on May right now, but I guarantee you when I start going, I'll listen to that playlist that we make, every month, and I'm gonna go, wait a second. No, this is really good. Because we
Yeah,
do that all the time. We kind of get down. I think we just get maybe a little overloaded and we kind of just have to reset. That's what's kind of good about these subject shows. We can
yeah.
kind of get away from the everyday checking out this and that, and we can just kind of dream a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. And it's nice. So if anybody has another idea of a subject show, please let us know because it makes things a lot easier on us.
Yes.
But also, we kind of like being challenged by the audience to figure out what we might talk about next. It's a
Yeah.
cool thing.
And we'll make another festival. Just give us parameters. Give us tight parameters and we'll do it.
No, I don't want that. I don't want that.
You don't want that? You don't want parameters? Jim.
All right. So is it my turn to wrap it up?
Sure, go ahead.
I will. We don't actually know whose turn it is every single time we record.
No.
This. We kind of guess this. Every once in a
Kind of
while,
our thing.
I kind of just say, Matt, it might be your turn, or is it my turn? And this is what happens.
Yep. And if I feel like doing it, I'll do it first.
Yeah, that's what happens. So, hey, everybody, I'm going to go first. Thanks for listening to the Jam Yearbook. Make sure you check out our playlist on Spotify of new music that we add each month. Listen to the next show or a previous show to find out the name of it, because I think it's something like new music the Jam Yearbook discovers. I could be wrong. We usually get that right when we're doing the show based on each month. But Dean, thank you very much for giving us the subject to talk about this month, because we have gone on and on and on, and we could keep going further.
On and on.
Probably better that we don't. Everybody, thank you for listening. Matt, say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Jam Yearbook, and we'll see you here next time when we talk about May.
Peace, love, and podcast.